Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to IFFGD's Research Award Winner Series titled Where Are They Now? This program was not only designed for IFFGD to recognize this year as being our 30th anniversary, but to also give us a chance to reconnect with some of our past Research Award winners. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Sengupta, who was our 2003 IFFGD Research Award winner for Senior Investigator in Basic Science. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Sengupta.
Thank you.
Yeah, so can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your current research focus?
Sure. Well, my name is Jyoti Sengupta. I am currently a professor of medicine in Department of Medicine, Medical College of Wisconsin. My main function is basic science research. Very broadly, is on chronic visceral pain, and that also chronic abdominal pain and pain related to interstitial cystitis and painful bladder syndrome. My background is neuroscience, so all my research is based on neurophysiological basis of chronic abdominal pain, mostly the pelvic pain, including GI related pain and urinary bladder related pain. I've been working in Medical College of Wisconsin for the last 20 years, and currently I have my own independent lab, and I have 5 or 6 people working with me. Some are junior faculties and research scientists. My research currently is fully supported by NIH, NIDDK, and GI division of NIH. And so I'm fully functional and trying to figure out what are the underlying mechanism of chronic pain. Uh, it's not just related to peripheral GI, but also brain gut axis, which is involved in this kind of pain. So, which is very much important. Uh, in addition, um, I would like to tell that I am very much interested to work on opioids. And currently, we are working very aggressively on opioids in relation to chronic abdominal pain. Mostly, we're trying to um, identify a non-addictive opioids because there are so much adverse effect of existing opioids like morphine. So we are trying to figure out a alternative non-addictive opioids which will alleviate chronic pain and which can be used in long term without producing any kind of use dependent addiction.
Yeah. Yeah, so can you, I know we said that at the beginning that you won our 2003 IFFGD Research Award, but can you tell us a little bit about how winning the IFFGD award might have influenced your career?
2003, long time ago. I forgot actually. Yes, as a matter of fact, very honestly, it immensely helped me because 2003, that was only 3 years since I joined Medical College of Wisconsin as a basic research scientist. At that time, I had no research funding so to support my research. So, although the award was given personally to me, but I have not used that money for my personal use. I invested that money to buy the research supply and all research related expenses. And that immensely helped me because I used that money to generate the preliminary data to write the NIH application. So, and then I used that money and all the research outcome utilizing that money, I published a paper, and I acknowledge IFFGD for that publication.
Wow, thank you so much for just sharing that story with us and the impact of winning the award. I mean, honestly, that's very significant, and we're so excited to even speak with you now to kind of see the journey that you've taken. So, in speaking of some of the research things that you are involved in, like functional abdominal pain and opioids, can you tell us a little bit about some of your current research topics that you guys are working on in your lab?
Absolutely. Let me divide that in different parts. Um, we are now working, which is funded by NIH, is to understand the chronic pelvic pain, which can, and overlapping pain. As you may know that sometimes there is a overlapping chronic abdominal pain related to bladder inflammation or GI inflammation, lower GI inflammation, and it can be functional, like functional gastrointestinal disorder or functional bladder syndrome, like interstitial cystitis. And this pain is very much overlapping pain. So what we are currently doing and what we have seen that in the newborn animals, if you insult or produce stress, in the adulthood, they develop a chronic pain.
Mm.
For example, if you produce interstitial cystitis in newborn pups when they are postnatal day 14 to 16, in the adulthood, they manifest GI pain. So this is a kind of chronic impairment of neural development. It can also happen if you produce stress in childhood. What we have seen that if you produce stress to the newborn pups in rat, in the adulthood, when they are fully adult, they behave differently, and they are much more hypersensitive to any kind of stimulus. So there is stress-induced disorders. It can happen in animal. We do see in clinical scenario, we do the same in the patients also. So what we are trying to do is to examine what are the underlying mechanisms involved in this kind of chronic pain following the neonatal insult, in the newborn, and how the opiate can alleviate this kind of pain. Like I said before, that standard opiates like morphine, uh, um, um, it can alleviate pain, but patient can develop a kind of tolerance. So they can become resistant, and then it comes the abuse of the drug. So we are trying to, we are working with the medicinal chemist to synthesize different types of opioids, which will produce analgesia in animals, but it will not manifest in any kind of use-dependent tolerance, or they will not be addictive to it, uh, which will have a very strong therapeutic importance. So we are pretty much very aggressively working on it. As a matter of fact, we will very soon we will be reporting that on one of our study in next 3 weeks. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's soon. That's soon. That's really
Yeah.
exciting. I mean, that's really hard work.
Yeah. In addition, what we are doing is to see how the sensation from the gastrointestinal tract, lower abdominal, from the colon, and from the urinary bladder they are converging into the brain. So at that, we are working with the different pseudorabies virus, how they get transported from these two organs into the brainstem, which are controlling our pain sensation. So we are doing in two ways. One, we are working in looking at the molecular status of these neurons, how it controls lower gut and bladder. And we are also doing a functional MRI to looking at the brain imaging in the rodents, in the rats, after producing this kind of insult. And when they are manifesting pain, so we are also imaging their brain. So we can complement this in humans,
Yeah.
and we can figure out that what are the areas in the brain is getting non-functional or overacting to a visceral stimulus.
Actually, I want to ask you too, when you're talking about some of these things that you're noticing in your rats and in the studies that you're doing, what
Yes.
do you hope that you better understand about these functional pain and about GI disorders in adults and children? So, like, what are you hoping to gain a better understanding about?
Sure. Uh, Number one, we will know how uh, our neurological system is involved and how the network of their connection gets disturbed following the um, childhood stimulus. It can be stress or it can be painful inflammation or anything. Second thing is there any change in the neurotransmitters in the brain which is producing this chronic pain? If that is the case, how we can manage that? And so for that reason, we are working on opiates and other analgesics to find a good uh, compound which will be less adverse to the central nervous system, so which can be used on long-term basis. Because most of the drugs, including non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug or opioids like morphine, long-term use can produce many complications.
Yeah.
So we would like to eliminate that so that at least patient can get something which they can use for long term, or
Without,
if it can normalize their lifestyle, you know.
yeah. Yeah, and like what you were saying, without that long-term effect of using opioids, right?
Right, right, that's right. So
Yeah.
that's our main objective. We are proposing this to NIH, and hopefully will be supported by NIH. So yeah, that's our area of research. Uh, it's a
Yeah,
lot of research, but yeah.
yeah, it is. It's a lot of research, but I think that what you're studying will definitely have an impact on the patient community because, as we know, many patients who suffer from GI disorders, the pain that they feel can be a wide range. I mean, from mild to very severe. So, understanding what's causing the abdominal pain and how can we treat, I mean, that's phenomenal research that has a major impact on the quality of life of
Yeah.
patients.
Yes, because basic science research is okay, but we have to and build a bridge between the clinicians and the basic science researchers. So we'd like to collaborate with our clinicians,
Yeah.
and we can exchange our views, and that's what I have done in last 20 years. Many clinical fellows, they have worked and got training from my lab, and they brought all clinical ideas to the lab. So it's very beneficial for us, and that's what we would like to do, kind of translational research,
Yeah.
so that um, there can be crosstalk between the clinicians and the basic science researcher.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we know that all research is really important research, right, in order to advance the field. But what would you consider potentially being your most successful research study and why?
Well, whatever I have described is very much, it is very satisfying to me. And um, whatever the research I have done, what I have documented or communicated as a scientific paper, it has been recognized very much. And but still, I have to do more. Um, so, so I'm very satisfied what I do. And uh, another rewarding area is to work with new fellows and students. They are learning, and
Mhm.
sometimes they come up with ideas which I cannot think, but which is very interesting. I mean, um, I would like to work with them.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just the collaboration, right? And just bringing more ideas to the table.
Absolutely. Which I have not mentioned to you is that I have undertaken multiple research projects with the pharmaceutical industries, including GlaxoSmithKline, AstraZeneca, and uh, Johnson and Johnson, and many others. So, and I have published paper with them, um, and and uh, it was very comforting that I have done it, and I keep on doing that. So yes, because at one point in my research career, I also um, served as a associate director of research of AstraZeneca, but I left and returned to my basic science research.
Yeah. So, and we know that you won the 2003 IFFGD Research Award, but since then, have you received any other acknowledgments for your research? And if so,
Yes,
can you
I
explain those?
uh, yes I did. I don't remember. I got a research scientist award uh, from a functional brain gut research group, and that was in 2007. And I got a NIH award for scientist. Uh, that was, I don't remember. It's 2015 or 2014, sometime like that. Yeah. I'm also in the review group of NIH in study section, both in a urogenital pelvic pain group and also the GI group. Yes.
Yeah, and that's a significant honor to be a part of NIH in helping with the research and
Right.
advancing the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very tiring because a lot of applications to review. Yes. But I really enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, honestly, that's being part of a researcher. And, as we're kind of talking about some of the acknowledgments and that you really do enjoy that part about reviewing these, even though it's hard work, what else would you consider the most enjoyable part about being a researcher?
Um, Reviewing the manuscript, getting the ideas from and attending scientific meeting where you can interact with other scientists
Yeah.
and come up with ideas. And sometimes it brings a lot of collaboration
Mhm.
um, between different laboratories. Um, yeah, I always
Yeah.
like it. I like satellite meetings. I really enjoyed IFFGD meeting in Milwaukee. Yeah, yeah, I like those kind of
Yeah, and I think too
interaction.
with some of the meetings and the scientific meetings that you guys attend, sadly with COVID, we weren't able to have all of those meetings last year, but those meetings are actually breeding grounds of more research because you're in contact with so many other doctors. And like you said, those are great opportunities to figure out what are some of the gap needs and how can we collaborate and really advance the field of GI.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, interacting with the clinicians uh, regarding the area of research and to get their feedback uh, because we are not directly seeing the patients, but they can bring the ideas. And it helped me actually. Um, the research which I talked about, the neonatal cystitis or um, GI inflammation induced chronic pain in adulthood. This was the idea brought to me by a GI fellow
Mm.
from our pediatric GI division, who was a fellow in my lab, and yeah, I mean, from there we expanded our research so much, and we are still doing it. So um, very interesting.
Yeah, and how exciting to have young minds bringing new things to the table for you to research.
Exactly, exactly. I fully agree. I mean, they bring the ideas, and all ideas can be very good. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's more questions, right, for you to investigate in. So
correct.
we were talking about some of the gap needs and how you collaborate with other people in order to really figure out how can we fulfill those. But what do you see as being the gap needs in research right now? And how do you foresee some of the research that's going on in your lab to fulfill some of those needs?
Yes. Basic science research, sometimes I do see very much confined into the lab, you know, and sometimes we go much, much deeper into intricate mechanism of the biological system. That's okay. But I strongly think that it needs to be connected to the clinical scenario, and that how we can apply that. Um, Sometimes, I mean, we publish many, many papers, but that remains in a paper. I mean, I don't know whether how much it gets applied in the real situation. So that's the reason I am currently working on the opioids, because its clinical importance and therapeutic importance is immense, I think. So that kind of research, which can be applied um, uh, in clinical scenario in any kind of disease, um, so it will be much more beneficial uh, to medical science. So that's very important. We still have that gap, so we have to narrow this gap. So that's the reason I told you that it's very important that clinicians closely interact with the basic science researcher, because sometimes we are deeply working on the basic science and do not pay much attention that in the clinical scenario, what are the things happening and how the patient uh, can be treated and their pain can be managed. So that's very important.
Yeah, and just hearing the patient voice and what are the patients explaining whenever they do see these clinicians as
Yes,
being their most dominant symptoms or
yes,
just anything, any questions that they have. And like you said too, collaboration is key in bringing in the basic and clinical science together to really have not only science but also the patient voice. I think that's awesome, and that's a very good way for you to really bring in every aspect.
that's right. In addition, the pharmaceutical industries, they should also know that that how the basic science research occurs and how we can interact in drug development and how patient-based drug development. which is very important. So, so that's why I work closely with the pharmaceutical companies and support their ideas and their target drugs, and at the same time with the clinicians, that how the patient can get better treatment.
Yeah, so you can bridge that gap and be the
Well,
researcher who's
that's my
figuring.
objective,
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
that's what I'm doing now.
That's awesome. Well, and, you know, congratulations to all of the things that you have accomplished within your lab. I mean, honestly, research is really making a tremendous impact on just the field of GI in general. Obviously, like you said before, we have so much more to learn, but it's just these little small things and bringing new things to the table, new ideas that help us advance the field and truly see the light at the end of the tunnel. So.
Right.
Yeah, so thank you. And thank you everyone who has tuned in to IFFGD's Research Award winner series, Where Are They Now? Where we've had the greatest pleasure of speaking with Dr. Sengupta. And thank you again so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me opportunity to talk to you.
It was awesome. Thank you so much.